its maker bows his head. Curtain torn in two, dead are raised to life. Finish the victory cry. We stand forgiven. We stand. We stand forgiven. We stand forgiven. We stand forgiven. We stand. To see my name written in the wounds, for through your suffering I am free. Death is crushed to death, life is mine to live, warm through your selfless love. This the power of the cross, Son of God, slain for us.
Buddy, happy to see you. If you would all rise, we're going to start worship.
Into the darkness you shine, out of the ashes we rise. There's no one like you, none like you. Our God is greater, our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God. Water you turn into wine, open the eyes of the blind. There's no one like you, none like you. Our God is greater, our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God. Our God is greater, our God is stronger. God, you are higher than any other. Our God is healer, awesome in power. Our God, our God.
Well, good morning. Before we jump into the text this morning, just want to give you a little heads up for what's in store the next 4 weeks. Next week, we're going to be looking at Deuteronomy 6 and talking about the family and the home. And then after that, I'm going to do a 3-part series in Acts chapter 2 on the church. And the reason I'm wanting to do this is because, well, the home and the church, they're both pretty foundational things, right? And so I thought that would be kind of a good way to get things started off, and then we'll go into a longer sermon series. But for this morning, we'll have another, what I call standalone sermon, and we're going to be in Romans chapter 8. And so if you want to turn to Romans chapter 8, as you're doing that, I'll make one quick announcement concerning these few sermons coming up. So like I said, next week, Deuteronomy 6, we're talking about the home. And kind of in conjunction with that, I want to experiment with something. So I've talked with the deacons and some others about this, and we think this might work. And so what I want to do is, not this next week, but the next Sunday, January 31st, we're going to have a family discipleship class at 10 o'clock, just 10 o'clock to 10:30, so it'll be a shorter thing than the full Sunday school hour, but 10 o'clock to 10:30, and I want to encourage everyone with kids in the home, whether they're young kids or even teenagers, to come and bring your kids or your teenagers with you. So this will be a unique thing. It's going to be the adults and the kids. We're going to talk about family devotionals and things like that, and even do some interactive things. So don't be too scared about having your kids in there with you. It'll be a short thing. We're going to have some interaction, and that's going to be something we're going to experiment with starting January 31st, okay? But again, that'll be in conjunction with this sermon that I preach next Sunday from Deuteronomy 6. All right, so again, we're in Romans 8 this morning, and I'll begin by asking you guys a question. Raise your hand if you have seen a 3D movie before. Have you ever seen a 3D movie? Yeah, I thought most of you probably had. So when you go into a 3D movie, of course, you have to have the glasses on, right? In order to see all the objects pop out to you. I remember whenever I was a kid, the first 3D movie I saw was at Disney World. And I think this is when they were pretty new, and so we had the glasses on, and it was some kind of thing with bugs that would fly around, and this bug came right to my face, and I thought that everybody was like looking at me and that it was coming specifically to my face, but of course, it all kind of it's an individual experience. But one thing you've probably noticed, I'm sure that if you've been to a 3D movie, that you took the glasses off at some point just to see what it looked like without the glasses. And what does it look like when you do that? Somebody just shout it out. Yeah, it's kind of fuzzy. You kind of see the picture overlapping. It just looks really messed up, right? So you take those glasses off and you think, wow, that really looks messed up. Now imagine if you walked into a 3D movie and you didn't know it was a 3D movie. Then you would really think it was messed up, wouldn't you? You would wonder what was wrong with the screen. A lot of times people will look at the world around us and they'll say, man, this world is really messed up. And, they're right, aren't they? This world is really messed up. And this truth by itself, it can lead to despair, it can lead to hopelessness, and it does for many. Things are not as they ought to be. But you see, the Christian worldview, one thing that's really encouraging to us to have God's Word, to have a Christian worldview, is that it gives us the lenses through which we can make sense of what seems senseless. We can see hope out of what might seem to be hopeless. And so it's kind of our set of 3D glasses, right? When we think about our worldview as Christians, of course, a biblical worldview, it's that 3D glass in this messed up world. But it's not a defeated groan, it's not a despairing groan, but it is a hopeful groan. It's a groaning for glory. And that's the title of my sermon this morning, Groaning for Glory. So we're going to read from Romans 8, verses 18 through 25. Would you stand with me in honor of reading God's Word? Paul writes, Romans 8, verse 18, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing to the glory that is to be revealed to us. Waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be set free from its bondage to corruption and obtain the freedom of the glory of the children of God. For we know that the whole creation has been groaning together in the pains of childbirth until now. And not only creation, but we ourselves, who have the first sufferings that are sown into the fabric of this life. And that can include, the smallest aches and pains, all the way to life's greatest tragedies. And because of this, as Christians, we have a distinct advantage in dealing with these issues, right? We have an advantage when it comes to suffering. And that really is a good thing, especially in light of our current circumstances. But this is not something that should take us by surprise, right? Just back up to verse 17, just right before we started in verse 18. In verse 17, it says that if we are children, that is, children of God, then heirs, heirs of God, and fellow heirs with Christ, provided we suffer with him in order that we might also be glorified with him. Provided we suffer with him. Of course, as Christians, we ought to expect suffering, right? It's kind of part of the deal, right? We suffer alongside Christ so that we might be glorified alongside Christ. Right? We should expect suffering in this life, and we certainly do experience it, don't we? And so, before we get to our main points this morning, I want to just take a moment to build on the analogy that Paul makes in our text this morning. So I want to give you two scenarios, okay? The first scenario is you have appendicitis. I don't know if any of you have had appendicitis, but I hear it's really